So if you're anything like me, you might have a lot of interests that you want to get into. Sometimes they seem unrelated. And so maybe it seems like you're doing too many things and you don't have enough time. I mean, we live busy lives. We only have so much time in the day. But something that I realized that I started doing, and it took me a while to figure this out, it allowed me to continue even when I reached a low point in my studies or my fitness goals or martial arts. There was something else that I was doing to keep that going. And what it is my hobbies and my interests, I tend to, without realizing it, connect them together. Let me give you an example. So this started back when I was a teenager. I loved rock music. I loved heavy metal. And so just here and there, I would dabble with bands with my friends and things like that. And I got into vocals. I really like singing. It's something I did for several years and then just kind of fell out of it as life got in the way and I started entering the working world and things like that. However, a few years later, when I was in my early 20s, I got into Taekwondo. My uncle is a Taekwondo instructor, and he encouraged me to get into it. He does another style, a traditional style Taekwondo, but I got into the newer Olympic style, and the WTF. He does an older one called ITF. But it got me into a physical activity that I probably wouldn't have gotten into without some kind of encouragement. Now, these two initial hobbies, these two interests that I have, vocals in a rock band and Taekwondo, seem very unrelated. But as the years go on, I studied Taekwondo for 15 years, even though I long since got out of, singing and wanting to be in a band and things like that. I stayed with martial arts for a very long time. And I remember when I was going for my first degree black belt test in Taekwondo, I had to write a history report, a history of Taekwondo. I was in college at the time as well and got into like full-on research mode. Went in through the studies and saw, like, okay, I'm going to check out the lineage of Taekwondo. That's part of the history. After studying Taekwondo for years, 15 years roughly, there was things that I was missing that I wanted to get into and I couldn't do it. Taekwondo is a great workout. It's a lot of fun. But there was just so many things I wasn't getting from it. I learned how to punch and kick. So mostly kick, really. And the blocks, but they're all karate-style techniques. As an outside observer, I couldn't see the difference between karate and taekwondo. They look the same for the most part. But I decided to try switching styles. So I switched to an Okinawan karate style, which is Shorin-ryu, and discovered that there was a lot more to it than just punching and kicking. There was joint locks, takedowns, throws, weapons. Traditional Okinawan karate actually has a weapons counterpart called koburo or ryukyu koburo. In my style, it's called matayoshi koburo, but it's native Okinawan weapon style. And so in Okinawa, they say that karate and kobudo are kyodai. They're brother and sister. They're siblings. They are related. You're not supposed to do one without the other. So when you study most Okinawan styles, you have a kobudo element to it. That I never did. That's not even part of Taekwondo, especially the WTF side of it. They may experiment with weapons or try other styles, but it's not integrated into a Taekwondo system, if that makes sense. In kobudo, there is a kobudo system integrated into a lot of styles, but there's also separate kobudo styles in Okinawa meant to blend with whatever style your empty hand is, your karate. So I got into karate several years ago, and one of the first things that I noticed was, we taught in English because I'm in the United States, but they gave me all the names in Japanese of everything. We talked about techniques and the Japanese names for techniques. To me, at first, this sounded mysterious, like I'm learning a word, neko ashi no dachi, things like that, maya geri, mawashi geri, and they didn't make any sense to me. I just said these words and I did the technique. Oh, a roundhouse kick is mawashi geri, or turning kick is mawashi geri. Front kick is maya geri. It's things like that. As I kept repeating these words, I realized that maya geri, maya means front, and then geri, it's actually keri is kick, but when you combine it into another word, that K sound, that first consonant sound, changes an accent to maya geri. Geri by itself is a completely different thing. I'm not going to talk about that here. But what I realized after a short period of time, maybe within the first 6 months, is I was actually not just learning the Japanese names for techniques. I was learning actual useful words like nekoashi, like ashi is foot or leg, and that's just a normal common word. Mae is a normal common word. So like mae ni, like to face the front or face forward. Mae ni is directional. It's a particle. It's just a regular everyday word that gets used. It took a little while, but then I started having these things sink in. I realized I'm learning vocabulary with everything. Light bulb moment. That was a moment where I realized I'm actually picking up a language through a physical activity. And not just like some words in a language, like actual useful elements of a language. So I just started learning more vocabulary. And then my dojo, my sensei said, hey, we're going to Okinawa in a couple of years. You're welcome to come along. The whole dojo goes, and we train in Okinawa and parts of Japan. And I'm like, I have to do this. I have to learn this language now so I can be more effective when I'm over there and communicate and get around and do things. And so I did. I started teaching myself Japanese language, and that's how I got into this language. My goal was just to be able to get by, to be able to understand some things that Sensei was teaching in over there, because over there there's some that teach in English, but a lot of them don't. They teach in Japanese because they don't speak English. Since they're not speaking English, I want to know what they're saying and not just copy them. Of course, it takes a long time to get to that point. But I began studying on the side every morning. If we made a routine to do this while I'm getting ready for work or waking up, eating breakfast, to just crack open a book and start studying and going through basics. I found out this was kind of several years ago, so there wasn't readily available information, but I found out about the JLPT test, and so I don't stress out about it, but I set that as a goalpost because I knew if I got to N5 level JLPT, that would be the basics that I could get into something, to use this for something. It's not going to get me everywhere, but it's going to get me around and help me out. And it did. I studied it. I studied for over a year, just going through basics. I work full time, have family. It's hard to do it, but I squeezed that time in. And went to Chicago, took the test, passed it. It was a very stressful test, by the way. Maybe it's just the test environment for me. It was a really good achievement. It was a really good feeling whenever that happened, because then I realized, I thought I hated learning languages, and now I like it. It's a lot of fun. Going into the language made me want to learn the language more. Using it while I was traveling, that immersion factor, the feeling that I went up another level just by taking that and using it over there and conversing with people as best as I could. It was still quite a challenge though. But it was helpful, and it motivated me to take it further. So I did. I continued studying for N4, and it took me several years to get to pass this test. It was a hard test as well, and especially traveling and being busy with work and things like that, it was added another layer. But I continued to do it, and I continued studying karate, and then when I went to Okinawa, and I had only been doing empty hand all this time, just karate. Kara is empty, hand, te is hand, so empty hand. I knew there was a kobudo element, but I was kind of like, I should only just do this for now. This should be my focus. And so I was there. And with the group, we went to the Karate Kaikan, and there was a Kobudo master there. The head of our organization is the head of the OKDR, Sensei Stolzmark, and he is very respected in the martial arts community in Okinawa also. And I was kind of just taking pictures for people because I'm like, oh, I only do the empty hand, so I'll take photos for the group, and you guys can focus on your training. And I did it for a little bit. I borrowed a camera, was taking photos for them, and then I think it was Ishiki Sensei's. I think it was his wife that came over to me and asked me why I'm not doing kobudo, and I said I don't do kobudo. I only do empty hand. And she walks me over and hands me a pair of tonfa, and says, join. Tells me to join the group, and I was very awkward and maybe a little shy about it as well because I didn't know what I was doing. But then she takes me off to the side and shows me a few techniques, just a few manipulations so that I can just jump in. And I did the best I could. I didn't do very well, but that it was very welcoming and very warm. It wasn't like there was a peer pressure element to join. It was like I was being welcomed onto the floor to train with everybody. And I think that was that was the very first time I did kobudo as well, was with Sensei Stolzmark, my sensei, Ishiki Sensei, in Okinawa at the Karate Kaikan. And it was a surreal moment for me. But at the same time, it also was my first motivating factor to get into kobudo. I was very busy afterwards. It took me a few more years, maybe a year and a half or 2 years afterwards, before I jumped in and started practicing kobudo, parallel to karate. And that's the point when I realized, and I think some people have told me this already, but that the two are connected. You have to, if you have an empty hand and you're solid in your empty hand and you put a weapon in your hands, the two blend together. It's meant to be that way. And so there was another light bulb moment there. Like, I'm studying language. I'm practicing karate. Karate got me into language. Because I was practicing language, I went to Okinawa. Met people over there who then got me into kobudo. And then now I'm practicing all three things. And they complement each other. And that's the thing. That's the thing that I want to talk about. When you're studying random things and you're trying to squeeze all this time in, it becomes a source of stress for you. At least it does for me. But if those things can be combined, if they can feed off of each other, it becomes a source of fun. It kind of starts to take that stress away. Let's say I'm studying at the desk every day, at my desk. I'm studying for a big test for Japanese, and then all of a sudden, like, I just can't do it for one reason or another, mental block or something else. But I'm still going to karate, or I have a trip to Japan planned, which I have another one planned for this year. But all of a sudden, like, maybe that kicks me back into gear to get me back at the desk and study, or I'm in class, I'm just using words, and those words might help me just get back into it for one reason or another. Oh, what does this technique mean? Oh, that's new vocabulary for me. And then next thing you know, I'm looking words up, and then I'm getting back into it. Oh, I want to know the kanji for this. That happens to me all the time. The other thing is rock music. So it started out like as a teenager being into hard rock, heavy metal, all forms of rock actually. But I started doing these things, and then I stopped. Still listen to music, of course, listen to it every day. But I stopped singing for a long time, and it was just because I just, I don't know, just didn't feel it anymore. It didn't feel the urge to do it, the want to make music with my friends and be in a band. And I was traveling all over the country for work and things like that, and I still do that. But But in pursuing language, I started to also listen to bands in other languages, especially in Japanese. And I found some really good bands. They wound up becoming some of my favorite bands. Singing in another language. Some of them was a 50-50 mix of English and Japanese, but it got me back into wanting to sing because I was studying this language now. And now I'm listening to songs in that language, and I like the song so much that I want to sing along to it. But I can't. So I need to learn. And I wanted to study lyrics. So I took my knowledge of this, study lyrics, even though I'm not good at singing really, and I'm not good at Japanese. I'm putting the two together. And I start learning at least how to sing in another language. Maybe I'm not good at it, but it's now another new hobby of mine to get back into singing, back into doing the things that I used to do, and then taking the language element into it and making that a part of it. So I'm now into martial arts, kobudo, like karate, kobudo, and fitness. I do go to the gym several times a week to supplement that as well. And that's another motivating factor. But then getting back into, these get me into studying the language of these, and then rock music in that language, and then getting me right back into singing. It created this full circle of things, and all these things that I love and I'm passionate about have now come together, and they feed off each other. Now there's a synergy in my hobbies and my learning techniques, the things that I'm into. Seemingly unrelated, but they actually go together. And then I thought about it. Other people can do this. So a coworker of mine, a good friend of mine actually, he came to me and he was studying Spanish, and he asked me this kind of advice. What do I do? How are you doing these things? He's also a martial artist, by the way, but he's studying Spanish. And he wanted to make his Spanish better, but things were kind of getting in the way. And then I thought about it, and I'm like, well, why don't you use italki or a resource and start talking to a teacher? Because immersing yourself and conversing and using it is another thing that's going to motivate you. And then I thought about it further. I'm like, wait a minute, I should recommend, and I'll do this week, things like Latin dance, salsa music, things like that, learning how to dance, learning the lyrics to those songs, and then understanding it, and then throwing those together, the dancing and language and music. It's just another example that came off the top of my head because of my own experience. So that's what I wanted to share. If your hobbies seem to be something that you want to do, but it's difficult to keep it going for one reason or another, find a way to take other passions and bring them together so that they can feed off each other, and it works. I'm translating these lyrics in some videos. These are things that I've done for the first time, not looking like I've read the other lyrics, but then I put that on my mind, and I sit there and I go through word for word and figure it out on my own with inaccuracies like I've mentioned, because making mistakes is part of learning. And so I go through and I just do these. I'm picking up new lyrics, I'm picking up songs, I'm learning how to sing them, I'm learning new vocabulary, new phrases, new kanji, things like that. And then before I know it, I'm like, I go to this Otoboke Beaver concert and I'm singing in Japanese the whole song in the audience. And 1 month ago, prior to that, I couldn't have done that. It's just because I was using that as part of my language study and supplementing what I was already studying at the same time to be able to do that. And it gives me more motivation and more inspiration. So I don't know, if you guys like things like this, please like this and leave a comment in the comment section below, because I would love to hear other opinions on this. And then just please subscribe. I'll keep making videos like this and try to throw more examples out there. I'm always coming up with new ideas, and if you have ideas, I'd like to incorporate them and try them out myself as I continue to share just things that I come up with on my own, or I hear from friends as well. Everyone, please have a good day, and keep learning. Stay motivated. Century out.